The SEAL commander did not lower the Barrett. He studied her through the scope, the heavy rifle braced against his shoulder, the desert heat shimmering around them like a wavering mirage. Every muscle in his body told him she didn't belong here, this slight woman in a dust-stained headscarf, standing unmoved under the glare of his crosshairs. She didn't flinch. She didn't plead. Her eyes were steady, patient, and terrifyingly calm. And in that silence, a truth slipped past the barrel of his weapon. This was no civilian. This was no frightened bystander. This was the marksman who once reached across 3,247 meters, 2 miles of wind, dust, and gravity, and ended a man's war with a single breath and a single bullet. The commander's finger froze against the trigger. Because he realized too late, he was looking at someone whose story no one dared to tell. To the men around him, she looked like nothing. Just another local, face lined from sand and sun, her clothes simple, threadbare. They muttered dismissive words, crude jokes, the kind men say when they think the world is watching only them. But the SEAL commander, he saw something else. Not at first, but in the stillness of her gaze. She looked at him not as prey looks at a predator, but as a teacher looks at a reckless student, waiting for him to understand the lesson before it was too late. Behind those steady eyes was a weight heavier than the Barrett in his hands. The weight of battles survived, of comrades buried, of the kind of precision that turned a rifle into both a shield and a grave. She had been a soldier long before she carried any rank. Born in the jagged silence of the mountains, she grew up where the smell of cordite clung to morning air, where the lullabies of childhood were the rattle of distant gunfire. At 19, she buried her brother, an infantryman taken by an ambush no one had seen coming. She remembered the burn of dust as she clawed at the earth, digging his grave with bare hands because there were no shovels left. Her palms bled, her voice broke, but her tears refused to fall. That night, she swore the ground would never take another one of hers without answering for it. Training followed, though no official academy claimed her. She learned from men too, broken to fight, from veterans discarded by wars that chewed them up. She listened, absorbed, and practiced until her body moved like steel and her heart beat with metronomic calm. And then one day, high on a ridge, where the air thinned and the earth fell away into endless valley, she breathed out and made the shot that echoed across continents, 3,247 meters. A world record whispered about in elite barracks, debated in shadowed corridors, dismissed in public because the world was not ready to believe a woman could reach that far. But the bullet had spoken, and it never lied. Now, years later, here she stood under the SEAL commander's scope. Around them, the platoon whispered, smirked, nudged one another, trying to mask their unease with cruelty. "Why's she here?" one muttered. "Probably following orders she doesn't understand," another sneered. None of them knew the ground they walked on was already measured in her mind. Every angle, every ridge, every shift of the wind. She had mapped the land before their boots ever touched the soil. The commander had been ordered to test her, to put her under pressure, to make her prove herself. And so he did what arrogant men often do. He pointed a weapon not to defend but to diminish. But dignity cannot be stripped by force, and hers was carved from silence deeper than bullets could reach. The longer his crosshairs lingered, the more the air seemed to tighten. Soldiers stopped shuffling. Bystanders grew uneasy, though none spoke. The commander's finger hovered, a heartbeat away from shame. She did not move. She did not blink. Her silence became a mirror, and in it he saw himself, not the decorated commander, not the feared sharpshooter, but a man caught playing a dangerous game with someone who had already won long before he entered the field. And then came the foreshadowing, small, almost imperceptible. A patch sewn onto her sleeve, faded but recognizable to any who had lived the life he had. The insignia of a unit disbanded years ago, one whispered about but never acknowledged. A unit where legends were born and buried in the same breath. The commander's mouth went dry. The wind picked up, carrying with it the smell of dust, sweat, and iron. His scope caught the tremor of her scarf fluttering. For just an instant, he imagined what she had seen through her own optics. Men in her crosshairs who never knew her name. Targets who thought themselves untouchable until her silence reached them across miles of barren land. And suddenly, he lowered the Barrett, not out of mercy, not out of kindness, but out of respect. Because he understood now, the greatest marksmen do not seek targets. They seek peace so precise, it can end wars without ever firing again. In that moment, though she had spoken nothing aloud, the silence etched words into the hearts of everyone present. A warrior's worth is not proven by who they threaten, but by what they endure in silence. Some records are written in ink. Others are written in miles, in wind, and in the breath you never hear. Respect is not granted by rank or by fear. It is earned in the quiet distance between a rifle and restraint. The commander stepped back, his face pale, his pride cracking. The men around him looked from him to her, realizing they had misjudged the balance of power. Whispers died. Laughter dried in their throats. And slowly, one by one, they straightened. Boots clicked together. Heads dipped, not because anyone ordered them to, but because honor demanded it. For the first time, the world gave her the respect it had long withheld, not through medals, not through headlines, but through silence heavy enough to bend even arrogance to its knees. In the barren desert, an image took root that would never leave those who saw it. A woman standing unarmed, unflinching, unspoken. A Barrett. 50, lowered by the man who had thought himself untouchable. A ring of soldiers, their pride silenced into reverence. No blood was spilled, no bullet fired, yet justice had landed heavier than any round chambered. And in that wordless standoff, history wrote itself not in the recoil of a rifle, but in the hush of a crowd forced to finally see. The SEAL commander would later confess to himself, and only himself, that he had never been so close to pulling a trigger and never been so grateful that he hadn't. He had aimed at her to test her. Instead, she had tested him. And the lesson was eternal. Strength is not in the weapon. It is in the restraint. Her record remained a number, only whispered, her name unprinted in books. Her story too uncomfortable for official pages, yet those who had seen her knew. They carried the memory like a scar they did not resent. Because legends are not always crowned. Sometimes they stand quietly, daring you to underestimate them. And in your arrogance, they teach you what honor truly means. And to those hearing her story now, the lesson stretches beyond the battlefield. Respect the unseen battles. Honor the silent heroes. Remember that the greatest strength may come from those who speak least, but whose silence weighs the most. Wherever you are watching from, share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're listening and what this story means to you. And if you believe the world needs more stories that honor the silent, unseen warriors among us, subscribe, because their voices may be quiet, but their impact is louder than any weapon ever fired.